Milwaukee Police Department's 2022 Violent Crime Plan. This plan provides an overview of our public safety efforts to mitigate violent crime. While MPD is committed to reducing all crime and indeed has strategies in place for other party crimes like reckless driving and human trafficking, we felt compelled to share with you our efforts to target violent crime in our city. Violence has traumatized far too many members of our community, and together we must do everything that we can do to stop the violence. The plan highlights MPD's ongoing and new initiatives to prevent, respond, and reduce violent crime in our neighborhoods. You will see we rely on a multifaceted approach that incorporates data, problem-oriented policing strategies, community-oriented policing strategies, and ongoing review analysis. We also rely heavily on strategic collaboration with the intergovernmental and community partners as force multipliers to reduce crime in our city. This plan is proactive. We cannot just simply arrest to diminish crime. We must work with community partners to deter crime before it begins. We will enhance our efforts to break the cycle of domestic violence. We will enhance our efforts to positively engage our youth. Two such community partners are here with us today. Carmen Petrie, the CEO of Sojourner Family Peace Center, is one of those partners. You will see in the crime plan that we've allocated additional officers to work within the domestic violence high-risk team known as DVHRT. Domestic violence is a root cause of a significant amount of violence in our city. We hope that this enhanced collaboration will assist in breaking the cycle of domestic violence and reduce recidivism and victimization. Also with us today is Adam Purcell of Paradigm Shyft. Utilizing focused deterrent strategies, we are partnering with Adam and other agencies to create a mentoring program targeting youth in the criminal justice system. Our goal is to reduce recidivism and through positive interactions and mentorship. I also want to thank Mayor Johnson and the Office of Violence Prevention Director Ashanti Hamilton for their continued support and partnership to work together to impact crime in Milwaukee. This plan also calls on every member of our community to be a part of the solution with this violent crime. The plan provides the public with an overview of how MPD intends to confront and reduce violence in our city, but we need everyone to be part of the solution. Together, we are better. So I'd like to now introduce the Mayor of Milwaukee, Mayor Johnson, to the podium.
Thank you very much, Chief. I appreciate that, and congratulations to you and Milwaukee Police Department on your work in this plan. I want folks to know that the work to make Milwaukee safer continues, and it continues uninterrupted. Part of that work involves constantly updating strategies and updating the tactics that we use. We must apply the latest practices so that the people of Milwaukee are safe. The plan that's rolled out today is not a broad, simply citywide approach, and that's for a reason. Just as each Milwaukee neighborhood is different and has unique characteristics, violent crime plan that we're talking about today is tailored to meet the unique needs of parts of our city as well. Milwaukee finished the year 2022 with some positive crime trends. And yes, as has been reported, homicides were up, but violent crime overall is down in Milwaukee, and down compared to what it was the previous year. Now into the third month of this year, 2023, crime numbers continue to head in the right direction, and that's good news for public safety in Milwaukee. The numbers alone don't tell the whole story, because I want not just the numbers to reflect positive crime trends. I want the people of Milwaukee to feel safe consistently in this city as well. Just because car thefts are down markedly, that's no comfort to someone who just had her car broken into. Just because burglaries may be down, that means little to somebody whose home insurance has already been raised too high because of burglaries in their neighborhood. So yes, the police have a plan, and yes, the Office of Violence Prevention is making strides forward as well. I'm also committed to addressing the root causes of crime. We've talked about this consistently. That includes providing positive direction for young people right here in our city. That also involves creating more economic opportunity for residents here in the city of Milwaukee. That also involves building neighborhood cohesiveness so that we're all looking out for each other, because as I've said time and again, everybody has a part to play in increasing safety in Milwaukee. Now, there are loud voices that you all have covered and seen in the past years who call for defunding the police and cutting $75 million out of the Milwaukee Police Department budget. I reject that. I reject that. And you know that. Law enforcement, I believe, plays a vital role in making Milwaukee safer. So let me make this point and be clear that I want additional resources for our police department. I want additional resources for the Milwaukee Police Department. I want more police officers in the city, but I also, too, want to support and do support other approaches, including prevention as well as early intervention. I'm fighting to get those resources for Milwaukee each and every single day in my job as mayor. So I believe that we're heading in the right direction, and I'm pleased to work with all the partners here to make sure that we stay on the right track, stay on course for a safer city. And so with that, I'm going to ask for the Director of the Office of Violence Prevention, Director Ashanti Hamilton, to take the microphone.
Thank you, Mayor. And I want to applaud the Chief and the Milwaukee Police Department for the creation of a safety plan that includes everybody in the city. There's a role for all of us to play when it comes to taking responsibility for safe streets in the city of Milwaukee. And I want to applaud the efforts of all of the partners for the willingness to come to the table to try to tackle some of the most difficult problems that our community is facing in today's climate. We have all talked about numerous times the multiple things that is having an impact on the rise in domestic violence, youth violence, and public safety in general in the city of Milwaukee. There's been a lot of talk about reckless driving, a lot of discussions around gun safety and the access to guns. This approach encourages everybody to take a role into trying to tackle these hard issues. And I especially want to reach out and thank the mayor and the chief for highlighting the importance of prevention and intervention and creating an avenue of partnership to make sure that those who are in the trenches working in this prevention work can actually work with police departments as well as with communities on committed responsibilities to constitutional policing. Because building trust with police departments is an essential part of making our community safe. So that commitment and creating a table for community members to actually participate has been one of the strongest components of this safety plan, because we're stronger together. And that's been the message and the theme of the plan. And we're finding ways to be able to plug into the goals and the implementation strategy for community members in this effort. So we want to continue that partnership. We want to continue to build the relationship. And we want to continue to give voices to people in the community about what they would like to see in their neighborhoods. This plan puts a focus on that, and that's something that we continue to support. And so with that, I would like to bring up Carmen Petrie from Sojourner.
Thank you, Ashanti. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. You know, Sojourner's been in partnership with the Milwaukee Police Department since the mid-'80s. And for us, while change is very much needed in many areas, if you're being raped or stabbed or set on fire or strangled or shot, you need a public safety approach. There is a need for strong strategy within the police department and partnership. And so for us, the police department has been a vital partner because they're a front door for many people. And I've heard time and time again how compassionate officers make a difference in the lives of survivors. And they open up that door to freedom for them and healing and possibility. And that's been the truth for many, many years. in spite of many of the things that you hear. So 30 years ago, we could not tell you who was going to be most at risk for being murdered. I could not tell you which person would commit that murder 38 years ago when I began my work. Today, we can tell you who that person is. We have something called the LAP protocol, which we started in 2015. Every jurisdiction in the county of Milwaukee uses this protocol at the scene. They call in a high-risk score on a case, and we began an advocacy protocol on those cases. We also felt that that wasn't enough, just to know the score. We convened a team in 2017. We had been waiting for funding. We had been looking at homicides. They're very predictable. Domestic violence homicide is the most predictable homicide that occurs. You can see it happening right in front of your eyes. And we knew we needed a different approach. And we couldn't get the funding, and in 2017 there was a young woman who was murdered. Within 3 weeks, there were 6 different incidents in 4 police districts, and she was murdered in West Dallas. And we looked at each other and we said, we can no longer wait for funding. We have to commit our existing resources. So we convened the domestic violence high-risk team, and they began meeting, and the only purpose for that team, it includes Milwaukee Police Department, District Attorney's Office, Sojourner, and the Department of Corrections. The only purpose is to prevent the homicide from happening. We just published a 5-year report, and out of 3,800 cases in the last 5 years, we've only lost 1 life. So we know that strategy works when we wrap our arms around people, and we're definitely better together. The problem we have is way too complex, and violence is normalized to a degree. For us, this is a human rights issue. People aren't born thinking, well, I'm going to shoot you someday, or I'm going to drive you over on the sidewalk. We learn that behavior through our environment, and we repeat it, and we live out into that legacy unless someone helps us through intervening or prevention, and loves us and helps us heal so that we can have a different life. So we just received an expansion grant for the entire team. We also are looking at evolving our work. Sojourner's been embedded in the Milwaukee Police Department districts since 2006. We've had an advocate in each district. We do community outreach, work with businesses, side-by-side home visits with officers. It's not enough. We need to be doing more, and part of that for Sojourner is we're expanding and trying a pilot project in District 2 to get out to the scene as quickly as possible, to begin to do advocacy and help open doors for that family. The second thing the chief and I have been speaking about is expanding the opportunity for other referral sources in the work that we do with people. So, not everyone wants to call Sojourner or will come to the corner of 6th and Walnut to the Family Peace Center. There's a young girl today in Sherman Park or in 53206 who would never think of coming to 6th and Walnut to a mainstream organization. He deserves the dignity, respect, and opportunity to heal. So for Sojourner, we are getting the message out. You don't have to call Sojourner, but your life, you're 94% more likely to survive if you speak to just one person. So talk to someone. Talk to someone in your life. If not Sojourner, if not police, talk to another program. So we've began to put out in our literature the 7 other programs. We're going to be looking at our hotline and the opportunities that will give to people to choose a culturally specific program, and creating the structure for warm handoffs in the coming months. So I'm making that commitment publicly. I want to let you know about it, that's what's to come. And we are facing a crisis like I've never seen in 38 years. If there was a word beyond emergency, I do a lot of interviews, I would be using it. The time for new partnerships, new strategy, new thinking is upon us. We have to do something different if we're going to stem the tide of what we're facing. So we're better together, grateful for partnerships, and we're looking to evolve. Thank you, Chief. I'm going to hand the podium over to Adam Casale.
Good morning. As I was listening to this distinguished people talk, I couldn't help but wonder, the people on social media right now are probably blasting them, saying, what is going to be different? same old story. How are you going to prevent crime in this city? It's sad because I feel the fact that I'm standing here proves that something different is happening. And to that end, I mean it by this statement. I was a part of the gun violence problem in Milwaukee via a life sentence handed down to me 3 days after I turned 15 for a homicide. I would end up being the youngest person in the state prison system, and I would serve a quarter of a century. So the mere fact that I am standing here next to the mayor, the chief, proves that something else is happening. Now I want to highlight 2 innovations that nobody knows about. Stuff that happens where there is no cameras, rooms that they stepped into before he was the mayor, before he was the police chief, to prove that there are things happening within this city that are different. Being informally incarcerated and seeing so many police shootings involve those that just got out of prison and law enforcement. So rather than paint a broad brush of all officers are terrible, lean into difficult situations. I went to the police academy. I took their citizens academy to understand, while they peeled back the curtain, how officers are trained. We brought them into our space. They've been here. They eat dinner with the formerly incarcerated. Before a police officer receives a badge, they eat dinner. They break bread with somebody who has made a mistake. And they humanize one another. Traffic stops, where so many bad things can happen. Rather than point the finger and say, police officers are terrible, we brought in a full-size vehicle, and we flipped the situation. We have those that just get out of prison wear the gun belt, have a gun that shoots air, and they're the police officers. And the police officer is the driver. And we run them through real-life scenarios to help each side understand the severity of what can happen when tensions are heightened. And nobody knows about it. We're not trying to bring press there, no disrespect, but innovative things are happening. And to see someone who just gets out of prison get shot by the police officer who's the driver, and for them to understand this is how quick it can turn. For the police officer to understand what it must feel like for someone who just got out of prison who's on parole, to understand if I don't act in a respectful way, things can turn sideways very quickly. There are innovative things happening. You know, when the city lost a hero in District 4, the tears that this city shed, or the tears in Memphis when a community member died. What do they have in common? What do they have different? There is no difference, same salinity. The pillow doesn't care about the tears that are shed. So we, as opposed to stop pointing fingers at one another, saying, you're doing your job poorly, you're not doing enough. Rather than complaining about it, find an organization that is doing something. Lean into them, volunteer. The second innovation is mentoring. We're partnering with the MPD and bringing kids that are involved with very high-risk crimes. We're taking them outside of the city to, believe it or not, Governor Tommy Thompson's estate. Not by surprise. The person who incarcerated or built so many prisons under his tenure now saying that was a mistake, allowing us to use his estate to show youth that they do matter. There is hope beyond tomorrow. We're helping kids see via a program we're calling Mirror, where we vividly reflect the lifestyles that they're living by engaging with firearms. We're taking them to the Freighter Trauma Center, helping them see in a very trauma-informed care sort of way the repercussions of what happens when somebody gets hurt, when somebody gets shot. Innovative things are happening. And rather than pointing the finger and telling somebody, you suck at your job, you suck at making our city safer, lean in. Do something about it. This is your city too, media included. Highlight organizations, not the same tired old nonprofits, not the same for-profits. Find the people that are innovating in this space and help them. Because by helping them, by helping us, organizations like Partners in Hope and Paradigm Shift, they're making your community safer too. So thank you.
I don't know if I want to follow up after that. Any particular questions?
Yes,
We're going to start from Mike.
Chief, you say you want more officers on the street, something that the community wants to do. How do you plan to achieve this, and how many of them do you have right now currently in the department? Officer?
I'm sorry, can you restate that again, sir?
You say you want more officers on the street, and the community wants that too. department plan to achieve this, and how many officer positions the department currently has available?
So it is no secret in regards that we're down, coming off of 2022 where we had a number of retirements and unfortunate resignations. The challenge is real in regards to what we're dealing with in the law enforcement community, which is not only a Milwaukee issue, this is a nationwide issue. Recruitment is an issue, and actually the mayor and I have talked many times in regards to what is that recruitment look like, some of the things that we've done in regards to the 30 by 30 initiative that we have signed on, talking more about recruitment videos, whatnot, but the mayor and other community partners have been very supportive in some of the things that we're able to bring more officers, the COPS grant. And so right now we are down. I believe there's a little bit over 200 officers, but we are working on, we have a class in right now. We're soon to have another class, thankful of the COPS grant, something the mayor's office is supportive and our elected officials. So it's not an easy lift, but the support from our elected officials, support from our community. I've always said, and I will remain to say, that we need sworn officers to do sworn things. And so by utilizing those collective help in regards to putting forth the support for this, but also understand that it's not just officers alone, which is why you see so many other partners, whether it's from our government partners, the Office of Violence Prevention, or community partners. But there are so many options out there of helping us with this crime issue, and that's where we really need to keep the narrative of what are we all doing.
Hi, Chief.
Hello, Leroy.
You talked about tailoring strategies to specific neighborhoods. And looking at this 44-page crime plan, what strategies do you see that are working? And in looking at some of the numbers, the data in here, homicides, 95% related to firearms, what continues to keep you up at night?
So when we talk about what strategies are working, I mean, the example was just stated up here today. For homicides that we are not proud of, an 11% increase from last year on top of 3 years of increase, there are strategies, there are works that are really impactful. And talking in regards to what is going on from the Sojourner Family Peace Center, DVHRT. Congressman been asking for help for that particular program in a more intentional way for years. This administration is the first to say, we see you and we will help, because we recognize in regards to half of our homicides, besides the domestic violence, but it's also poor conflict resolution, which a lot of times is intermingled or tied together when you talk about domestic violence. So those are things that do keep me up in regards to seeing these, I would say, avoidable or impactful ways that we can do that we should be doing more of. But the youth, and when I talk about youth, I'm not just talking about 12 and 13-year-olds. Youth, especially, the ages that we're up here, I mean, 21 and under. We're seeing them engage in more and more risky behavior. So having somebody like Adam or working with Director Hamilton's team of being able to have what's called focused deterrence, surrounding that particular individual with programming and people who have lived that life that have the credibility, how can we not embrace that? So from the plan that's presented is not a police resource strategy alone. It has a part. We put back in summer gardening because we understand the impact that comes from having those particular type of resources focused on behaviors of firearm violence in our community. This plan covers firearm violence, but it covers more than just saying that we're just going out arresting. We're talking about prevention, because we saw a 5-year-old who had got a hold of a weapon that wasn't locked up, that wasn't secure. We have individuals going into a number of stores, buying for others who cannot buy a weapon, straw purchasers, or those who are felons. Unacceptable. So this is a multifaceted plan about one strategy about how do we impact violent crime in multi-purpose way.
Question for Mayor Johnson. A lot of future success, including potential success with this plan, is going to depend on resources, something you mentioned. Let's say they don't land or there's not enough to spread around. Where will you prioritize youth prevention and family prevention when it comes to, or rather youth outreach, I should say, family outreach when it comes to preventing violent crime?
Well, that's a great question, and I spend countless hours each and every single week, it seems like at this juncture, in the state capitol, speaking with Republican leaders in the legislature, both in the state assembly as well as the state senate, and speaking with the governor's office too. And I think that for the first time in probably nearly 30 years, we're in a position, and I think that's in part due to my leadership, due in part to some of our other partners at the county and the business community as well, who've done this outreach. We're in the position for the first time in decades where everybody seems to be of the same accord, and that more resources need to be available to the city of Milwaukee. And not just to the city of Milwaukee, but other communities around the state that are suffering as well. So I feel very optimistic about where we are, where we've come over the course of the last year that we've really dug deep and been engaging on this. And so I see a future in which there is more flexibility, where there are more resources that we'll be able to use to support police. But as you're alluding to, it's not just police. And as Chief Norman has talked about, and I've said ad nauseum, and Director Hamilton has said ad nauseum as well, it isn't just police alone, right? Everybody has to be a part of the solution. Everybody has to be, everybody has to have a hand in this. And so it's police, yes, but it's also teachers and preachers and mentors and friends and programs like our longstanding Earn and Learn Summer Youth Jobs program, or the new Camp Rise program that we started just last year that is touching hundreds of kids in Milwaukee who otherwise would be susceptible to being recruited into stealing cars at a young age. And so that takes city resources, it takes philanthropic resources, it takes fundraising from the business community in order to get those things going and sustained. So I feel really good about where we are and where we're going in terms of the resources that we potentially will be getting. And I will continue week after week, just like I did just this week, to go to the Capitol, to engage with legislators, to bring more resources to bear to support all these efforts, especially along the lines of public safety and support for our police department.
I have a question. My question is for the mayor, and how can we have confidence in your leadership? I'm running for first district alderman as a write-in candidate. When we had the Office of Violence Prevention in our community, 414 Life in our community, we were considered the targeted neighborhood at one point in time. We have the Blueprint for Peace. We've got another plan here. So how can we be confident in your administration when we've had Ashanti as our alderperson? We haven't had very much change in our city. You've appointed him the director of Office of Violence Prevention. They've been in our community. How can we have confidence in you that things are going to change?
Well, Mr. Tony, I think it's important to point out the fact that I mentioned here, the chief has touched on too, in the one solid year that I've been mayor of this city, 2022, just last year. I pointed this out, the chief has pointed this out, the data is what it is. And I'm, the first one to point out that the homicides that we've seen in Milwaukee over the course of the last number of years is unacceptable. And that's work that we have to do. But in other major crime categories, we've been successful in pushing crime down. That's something I'm going to stand on just as much as we're going to continue to work on the issue of homicides. I think that there are some positive trends of safety being increased in Milwaukee, and we'll continue to work on those issues as well. The Office of Violence Prevention has been a partner and will continue to be a partner. I think Ashanti's doing a great job in his new position, and it is new for him as well here too. But these things take time, they take focus, they take energy, they take effort. But I think we're seeing some positive trends, and I think we're in store to see some continued positive trends. And all of us here, all these partners, whether it's in police, in the mayor's office, in OVP, in domestic violence reduction community, in mentorship community, will continue to put efforts forward to have positive trends to send crime downward in Milwaukee, just like we saw over the course of the last year, the one solid year that I've been mayor of the city. That's why folks should have faith in me leading this city.
Well, I contacted the Office of Violence Prevention. I can't get a return phone call. So you say you want the citizens and people to help out, but
Well, we're committed to working with folks in the community, but we can have an offline conversation, Mr. Tony.
That's fine.
Mr. Hughes.
I have a question for the chief. Chief, obviously, there's information in here about new initiatives and reallocating resources. But there's also a lot of information in here, a lot of initiatives and strategies touched on that you've mentioned before publicly, just not in as much detail.
Correct.
How different is this plan from what you've been doing the last couple of years? And would you say that releasing this plan is a response to public pressure for transparency?
So there are things in that plan that we have been working on, have been part of the strategies that the police department put forth. As I mentioned before, the summer guarding, that is something that we've utilized in collaboration with the community, making sure that there is a understanding of what this particular type of work is being done, but how we can work together. But bringing in, again, new partners or re-establish roles with partners, I think is a responsible leader to embrace various solutions, especially when there are individuals willing to take on the call of being able to be part of the solution. The pressure's always been there. It's been 2.5 years now. I don't think until I'm out of this office that I'll ever not have pressure. So understanding that there is a expectation to continue to recalibrate, look for new opportunities, being able to embrace, individuals who are looking to see how can they be a part of the solution in a different way. Embracing, they always say leaders are readers. I read and look at, what is a potential offering. We have to be risk takers to really make impact. Being comfortable is not acceptable, especially when you're serving the people. And so, yes, there is, oldie but goodies, but there's some new stuff that, listening to, Karen Petrie in regards to this is something that really is worth the department investment in. Let's see where this can go, especially when you have the evidence base of the success. We see what the problems are. Why are we not putting forth impactful and actual sustainable solutions? Because it's not enough just to send officers to a particular neighborhood, as we saw the areas of focus. It's about being multifaceted in your approach and utilizing all resources that people are willing to have that subject matter expertise and credibility. And through our collaborations, we talked many times about domestic violence, there are culturally sensitive groups out there. How can we tie that in to the overall solution and being intentional about it?
Before we continue, is there any other questions for the mayor? Because he's got another obligation. Thank you. All right, Ashley? Or one second.
Hello, Ashley.
Had a couple quick questions about the DV effort. Is it MPD policy that all officers who respond to a DV call are required to perform the lab protocol?
So that is something that, got to look at what that particular situation calls for. So I have to look into that and get back to you about that. I know that there's been a question asked in regards to some questions about a specific case, and just want to ensure that we, are answering correctly.
Yes, but I'm asking just generally, what is MPD's policy about how officers are to use the lab protocol?
Again, I'll look into it and get back to you.
Okay, and then can any officer who takes a DV report refer that to the high-risk team?
So that is.
Yes, I can, Ashley. Yep.
Thank you.
And they do, actually.
You want to say something?
Community partners can also refer to the high-risk team as well. So we expanded our partnership to include Alma as well. So.
Chief, can you talk about what a district-level micro-crime plan is? Have they already been handed out to every district? And I see here about a 6-month timeline. Is there, where are we on this timeline? Are you expecting to see results? And can you break down what that micro-crime plan is and what kind of resources went into creating those?
So utilizing our Office of Mapping Analysis and Planning, the statistics, especially for Part 1 crimes for violence, each district was charged with utilizing that information to create their own micro strategies for focus areas. And so within that particular violent crime plan, we have identified 12 areas where districts are saying this is where we're going to put more work into because the numbers, the data, is showing areas of concern. And with that, they are expected to have their own respective crime plans in those particular areas. This is something that we talk about in our public safety review every week. This is something that's going to be monitored from the executive command staff in regards to where we were and where we will be. And I've always charged them to be creative. Looking at these particular micro areas, is it a particular block? Is it a particular couple of blocks that has a number of issues that can be addressed beyond just the Milwaukee Police Department, but with our governmental and community partners? And when I talk about community partners, it's more than just the ones that we are very familiar with, whether it's our Sojourner Family Peace Center or the Safe and Sound. We're talking about barbershops, salons. We're talking about individuals who have a stake in a healthy and impactful community. And so we're looking at it from the standpoint of what can we do when we see these particular numbers to see what's driving it, and that there will be, again, accountability measures that we're going to check on from the executive command staff to see that we're making that particular impact. As it says in that particular timeline, 30 days out, we're going to have things being initiated because of the release of the crime plan. But it's going to, again, be reassessed, reevaluated, looking to see if there's anything that we can change. But we have a pretty good, robust relationship with a lot of our governmental partners, a lot of our community partners, but we always can do more.
I think my question is more for Ashanti, but could relate to you too, Chief.
Do you want him to go first?
Yes, sure.
All right.
I think it's relevant to ask what's the difference in this approach. We were here about like a month and a half ago where you talked about community engagement, hitting those hot spots. And since February 19th, we've reported on about 10 kids and teens that have become victims of gun violence. I mean, what does that say about your approach then? And again, talk about the difference now. What do you expect a different approach? It kind of seems like this terrifying trend is just going to keep happening. So if you can touch on the difference of this plan and the one last one we talked about.
Yeah, so this is the plan written out. So this is what we have been working with the police department with. There's a lot of data that's here that have identified those hot spots that the chief mentioned. We also have other partners that have a plan in the VR Fast team that are also working with the police department in these areas. And so there is a ongoing kind of process. I mean, since we were here in February, this is a document that the police department is putting out so that people can actually see what that plan is. He's actually laying out the community outreach strategy with some of the partners in that section of the plan. And so that fits with the activities that we plan on supporting in those same areas.
But you talked about it last month, but the issue's gotten worse. So what does that say about this approach?
I was just asking the chief, there are, since February, tangible changes in the DV area. So the chief has committed an additional 7 officers to the sensitive crimes unit. That's tangible. We're moving from 1 day a week to eyes on high-risk cases every day of the week. We've added an additional partner to the high-risk team. We have a robust DVCLO, so we need both a centralized and decentralized approach. We have the pilot project that the chief has approved that will be moving forward soon in District 2. So those are some of the things that have changed and will continue to change. And an example of the micro plan, so in 2010, there were 10 homicides in District 4, and we tried this approach. I've been asking the chief, I've been asking for a specialty team for years. So we brought down the homicide rate from 10 to 0 and kept it there for 2 years with a range of strategies driven by the captain in that district. So I know this micro plan is one that works. if we can get it up and running and sustained and directed by the people who know what's happening in that district. And it included on-scene response, specialty officers, work with businesses, working with other churches, schools, and community partners. So I think the micro plan is heading in the right direction. So I just wanted to jump in and say, we got $1 million grant from the governor's office. Before that money came through, the chief said, you have 7 officers that are going to be redeployed for attention to domestic violence. I think that's a tangible change.
It is,
So,
absolutely.
all right.
And officer violence prevention is part of that work. I know that Karen Tyler is a liaison between Sojourner Family Peace Center and the work for the DVHRT, and also for us, partners within the Public Safety Review, partners within the VRFAS, Alliance Response for Public Health and Safety Teams. It's important for us to all know that the numbers that we're seeing, I don't point to any one particular individual to be part of that change. I know I've seen some of the media reports saying that, you know, numbers are down. Well, it's been cold. Well, it was cold last year. So to put out where there is not active work being put forth from our governmental partners or community partners, I find that, you know, pretty sad not to say that there is work being done in our community from all different aspects of our community that's showing results. And being in a multifaceted collaborative approach is beyond just having that impact and saying we're done, but having sustainable impact and continue to have people who are subject matter experts working on the collective work of safety within our community.
I have a question for Ashanti or Adam. What's your approach to getting teenagers, youth to listen and to want to go to, you know, organizations like Camp Rise? You know, when you're a teenager, you want to do what your peers are doing. You don't want to go listen to elders talk about how to be good students. So what's your approach to that?
Well, I'll start. Well, one approach that we're using is using a peer training approach, so that you're right, sometimes they don't want to listen to older people tell them the right and wrongs. But what we are doing is getting a lot of other youth who have decided to change course and give them training and use a peer relationship, peer training, peer de-escalation training. And it's been very effective in bringing having credible youth actually engaging in, who used to engage in that activity with them, actually bring them to some of the activities that they have now chosen to spend some time in. And it's been very effective in showing them that there are alternatives that are still cool, that is still fun, and it's in the realm of interest that they continue to do. So it's been a very effective strategy doing that. We've also taken to heart taking youth out of the city and having them engage in many of these activities outside of the city. Many of the youth have not experienced that, both in nature as well as other major cities, in a way where they could enjoy the city. And it's been eye-opening for many of them to know that this is within their grasp, whereas before it seemed like another world. So a lot of these strategies have been very effective in being able to reach youth, and then just being present in their spaces. So actually being invited and being able to be in their spaces, and then talk about some of these things in the spaces where they feel comfortable, has shown a sense of trust and the ability to, you know, to kind of pull them out of certain activity. So it's been very effective with reaching some of the youth that are not just walking into some of the youth organization doors.
The short answer is time. Resources is a little bit longer of an answer, and to understand that, you have to understand it cost us, this city, of $428,000 to incarcerate one youth for a year. $428,000 to incarcerate one youth for 1 year. Imagine if you just took half of those resources and showed the youth that they matter beyond incarcerating them. And so for our mentorship program, we're actually employing a triangular mentorship approach. We're showing them their past, future, and present. So we have people like me with lived experience talk to a youth, and don't tell a youth what to do. I've never once told a youth, don't do this, don't join a gang, because youth know what to do. But let me show you what I did. And if you want to follow my footsteps, that is your right. Connect them with law enforcement. They can take you away from your family if you continue to engage in this behavior. And then using the restorative justice approach, we're showing them parents who have lost children to gun violence, to have conversations with them, to go to the gravesite, to sit in the bedroom where they've lost a young one, a son or a daughter, to build that empathy to show, look, this is what you're potentially doing to not only yourself, your past, your present, and your future if you continue on this line. So yes, I agree. Kids want to do their own thing. Youth want to do their own thing. But if you lean into with time and show these youth that they are valuable, rather than spending almost $500,000 to incarcerate one, that's not value. For them to understand that with your actions rather than your words, you'd be surprised by the ear that gets turned to you.
Chief Norman, I was moved by what Carmen had to say about domestic violence. I had a couple questions about that. First of all, what are your concerns, the level of domestic violence homicides in our city, and what is the main criteria for officers to be sent as part of this domestic violence high-risk team?
So I have a long history working within domestic violence. I used to be with the task force on family violence facilitator back in the day before change and transition to other partners. Seeing that this is more than just the particular victim's impact. I mean, it impacts the family, impacts the community. Knowing that we do have the, again, impactful programming. You heard the numbers. The numbers speak for itself with the DV high-risk team task force. And so it did take a little bit of a recalibration of one of our units, the sensitive crime units, where we had took and redeployed our officers. But that's the importance of our, leadership of ensuring that we are putting resources where you can create or have the most impact. And so seeing from the 2022 numbers that over half of our homicides included the domestic violence victims, show there's a level of urgency, and as a executive, why not address that in the way that you have some way of power to do so? And also, again, this is something that Carmen's been asking before my, putting into place for the department, and why not? I think that that's where you really say that, this is not just a going through the motion and talking about embracing, partnerships and being out there with the community. These are tangibles in regards to that. We put our money where our mouth is, and for the investment and being able to say that we see that there's other opportunities to have that type of impact, and we're willing to, put our efforts in with you.
What are the main criteria for
Sure.
police to be sent as part of that?
So a high-risk case is determined when you get a score of 24, 25, or 26. It's a set of questions that you get asked. Automatic referrals include any sexual assault, stabbing, involvement with a gun. So there's 11 factors that get looked at. So if you score high, then you're referred to the high-risk team. And then they meet once a week to look at all the factors. Maybe it needs to be charged differently. Maybe we need additional investigation. Maybe the client needs to be put in shelter or victim witness protection. All kinds of things are looked at to try to prevent that homicide. But automatic sexual assault, weapon used, repeat offender is a concern for us. An unemployed offender can also be a high risk in strangulation, especially strangulation to the point of losing consciousness or losing your bodily functions. So I'll tell you the bad news is we have way too many high-risk cases in Milwaukee. Almost 80% of the cases Sojourner get are high risk. And so I have been asking the chief, and one day I called him and said, can you get rid of the horses? Can you get rid of the motorcycles? Remember that conversation? I'm like, we need to do something differently because we have way too many cases. So we're going to have our eyes now every day in some capacity. We also added through DOC a therapeutic position to help offenders who need support in changing their behavior, because we're not going to arrest ourselves out of this problem. We're not going to punish ourselves out of this problem. So I think the high-risk technology is the right way to go, and it frees up our energy to do something different on other types of cases, because not every case is lethal. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Great.
Just to say I said no when she was asking me that, so.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, thank you all. Like I mentioned before, we'll have other opportunities if nothing was left.